So it kind of defeats the purpose of, you know, doing all of these great treatments and then your hair just dries out. Hey, what's up everybody? It's Gwen and welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new, welcome to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a video where I talk about 10 tips for high porosity hair. So I do have high porosity hair, so I can attest to these tips. I'll try not to make this video too long because I can ramble sometimes, but I will be sure to keep it brief, but also have the information for you guys. If you enjoy this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Also be sure to turn on all your notifications and follow me on Instagram and TikTok at SoNaturallyGwen. All right, let's get started. Okay, so before we get started, I'm going to define what high porosity hair is. So porosity has to do with the structure of your hair. And so your hair strands are covered in a cuticle. So the cuticle of your hair can either be raised or closed. And so high porosity hair has a tendency to have open hair cuticles. So moisture easily enters the hair and leaves it just as easily. So some characteristics that define high porosity hair is that your hair is prone to frizz, your hair is sensitive to humidity, your hair dries out really quickly. So if you are air drying your hair will usually dry quicker. If you put moisture into your hair has no issue taking it up, but you have trouble retaining the moisture. So yes, that is what high porosity hair is all about. All right, so let's get into these tips. Tip number 1 is to master the wet strand test. And so what this does, it tells you if your hair is balanced in protein or moisture. So it's important to have protein moisture balance in hair just in general because it makes your hair elastic and it prevents breakage because your hair isn't too dry. And then it also is important because the protein makes your hair strong and prevents frizz and things like that. And also for high porosity hair, there are spaces in between the cuticles. And so protein does the job of fitting between those cuticles to make your hair strong. So overall, it's important to make sure that you assess if your hair needs protein or moisture based off of, you know, how your hair is. You take the piece of hair and you run it under water. Usually I do this on wash day, my bad. Yeah, on wash day. You run your hair under some water and you assess how flexible and how strong the strand is. Where you want your hair to be is you want it to be nice and elastic and stretchy because of the moisture, but not break, so you can feel the strength of the strand when your hair is balanced. So if your hair is super stretchy, stretching and breaks, then you will know that your hair has too much moisture and it's time to put some protein on your hair. And then on the opposite end, if your hair is not stretching as much and it seems very stiff and breaks also, then you want to add moisture to your hair because it's time for moisture and your hair has too much protein. And so yes, it is very important. You also can just always just assess your hair. So like when you're touching your hair over time, when you get to learn it, you'll say, okay, it feels a little bit too moisturized, has too much protein. So yeah, if your hair feels too soft and moisturized and it's breaking off really easily, it's time for protein. And if your hair feels like straw and like seaweed and just very stiff, then it's time for some moisture. Tip number 2 is to not overuse humectants. So humectants are ingredients that are moisturizing and they bring moisture to the hair. So examples would be honey, glycerin, aloe, maple, marshmallow root extract, slippery elm. I think that's it. There's a few out there. There are probably more out there that I don't know of, but those are the ones that I've come across. And so high porosity hair, like I mentioned, accepts moisture really easily. And so humectants are stronger than water when it comes to moisture content. So humectants just are constantly bringing moisture to the hair and attracting it to the hair. So if you have high porosity hair and you use a lot of moisture, your hair can become frizzy because your cuticle is open and accepting the moisture. Tip number 3 is to use protein moisture balanced products. So yes, it is really important to make sure you use protein moisture balanced products just for those reasons like I mentioned already in this video. Protein is going to help to make sure that you fit between those spaces of the cuticles, and what the protein does is creates a barrier so the moisture doesn't leave the hair as easily. And this is important because with high porosity hair, like I mentioned, moisture leaves really easily. And I've noticed that when I make sure that I have enough protein in my high porosity hair, my hair just like absorbs not absorbs moisture, but it retains moisture a lot better. And I feel like my hair benefits from it because it's not overdoing it. Like having the balance is really the key to make sure that not too much moisture is in your hair and that you retain it well as well. So I'm going to show you some products that I would recommend. So for example, this is the Shea Moisture Jamaican Black Castor Oil Leave-In Conditioner. So this is an example of a good protein moisture balanced product. Another product that is protein moisture balanced would be a mask. So this is the Bread, what is this called? Bread Beauty Supply Hair Mask Creamy Deep Conditioner. This one. So these are two products that are good protein moisture balanced products. Now I could go more into detail about the level of protein and moisture and everything because it's based off of where the protein is in the ingredients list in comparison to where the moisturizing ingredients are, like the humectants. So there is a bit of a science to it. So make sure you check out my protein moisture balance video if you are interested in learning more details about that. But yes, overall, it is important to use protein moisture balanced products because you want to make sure that you maintain that balance in your hair. And it's not like an all-in-one process where like if your hair needs protein, you use all moisturizing ingredients for your wash day. Or if you need protein, you use all protein containing ingredients. It's a delicate balance and you have to learn how your hair reacts and you have to find out how delicate the balance is in your hair because if your hair is damaged, it probably needs more protein just because of the damage. So it really just depends on how your hair is. So it's a learning curve, unfortunately. I don't even know what tip we are on. Okay. Yes. Tip number 4 is to layer your leave-ins with butters and hair creams. So given the fact that high porosity hair has a hard time retaining moisture, it's a good idea to layer your leave-in conditioners with heavier products on top so that you make sure that there's less of a chance for the moisture to leave your hair. Just because I felt like just using a leave-in conditioner with an oil just wasn't enough. So I started using butters. So my favorite butter is this one. So my two favorite butters at the moment are the Curl Theory Multi-Style Cream. So yes, this is from Target.com and it's a Black-owned hair company. And then I also like the Melanin Hair Care Twist, what is this called? Twist Elongating Style Cream. As you can see, she is well loved. And then also, like I mentioned, I like the Shea Moisture one. So it's a good idea to apply butters to your hair as well and just see how your hair reacts. You might notice that your hair retains a lot moisture. Your hair retains a lot more moisture, a lot better. I don't know what tip we're on. So the next tip is to deep condition every time you wash your hair. So deep conditioning is really important, especially for high porosity hair, because if your hair is naturally dry because it doesn't retain moisture well, it's really important to make sure that you add extra moisture to your hair. So if you're someone like me who likes a protective style, you're probably going like a week or two, or maybe even like a month, depending on your schedule. You might go a little longer, washing your hair. So it's a good idea to add that extra dose of moisture or protein or whatever you need at that time so that it can last for a longer period of time. That way you're not reapplying products throughout the week and you don't have to worry about getting too much buildup on your hair. If you're worried about wash day taking longer because you have to do that extra step, I recommend finding products that don't have to be left in as long. So for example, I have this one that I just bought, which is the Shea Moisture Manuka Honey and FROtorial Intensive Hydration Hair Mask with fig extract and baobab oil. These names from Shea Moisture are like super long. So yes, this is a very moisturizing hair mask that only has to be left in for 5 minutes. So yes, I recommend finding products that don't have to be left in as long if you're worried about wash day taking longer because you have to worry about deep conditioning. The next tip is to follow the directions. So if you watch my protein moisture balance content, you will know that I have had issues with protein and moisture imbalance because I've left a product in for too long. So it's important to just follow the directions of the product. I don't recommend leaving your deep conditioners in overnight because that's how you get into protein overload, moisture overload. Unless you've experimented and your hair is fine, then do whatever you need to do or do whatever you want. But I highly recommend just starting off following the directions because they're telling you that certain amount of time for a reason. The next tip is to do the cold water rinse method. Just whenever you are done washing your hair, rinse your hair with cold water. This will help to close the hair cuticle because the steam of hot water helps to open the cuticle. So closing your hair cuticle with cold water is important so that you don't lose any of the moisture and other benefits from the products that you've used during wash day. You don't have to use like cold water necessarily. You can use like lukewarm or cool water, but I don't recommend using hot water to rinse out your hair when you're done with your wash day. The next tip is to do the L.O.C method. So I recently started doing the L.O.C method, like literally yesterday I washed my hair, and I tried this new method because I've been doing a lot of research on the L.O.C method, and well, not a lot, but it's pretty simple, but I was doing research on the L.O.C method, and yeah, it's better for high porosity hair. And so, okay, the L.O.C method is liquid oil cream, and for years I've been doing the liquid cream oil method, so LCO, and I stood by that method, and it does work. Like, I'm not saying it's bad for your hair, it's going to make your hair like, get messed up, but I will say that the L.O.C method is much better, especially for high porosity hair. So I thought cream was your leave-in, but no, L kind of stands for liquid as well as leave-in. So you put water on your hair, you put your leave-in conditioner on your hair, then you put oil on your hair, and then you seal it with a cream. And I was like, why does that make sense? So basically, putting the oil right on top of your leave-in conditioner is going to create a barrier. Oil and water don't mix, so it's going to seal in that moisture and prevent it from leaving the hair. And then the cream just also helps to seal in the moisture as well because it is that heavy product, like I mentioned, adding butters on top. And also, if your cream is moisturizing, it's going to make sure that the cream doesn't sit too close to your hair. So that barrier is going to prevent your hair from getting over moisturized. So it basically makes the process of it going into your hair a lot slower. So I will be doing a low porosity tips video. So LCO is better for low porosity because that leave-in conditioner and cream are locked in, and with their cuticle doesn't open as easily, but it's kind of being forced in a lot better as opposed to the opposite where the cream is farther away from the hair strands. Of course, it's a very thin layer of oil, but yeah, there is that barrier in between it. So I highly recommend using the L.O.C method for high porosity hair. I can show you an example of what I used for this particular hairstyle. So for my L, of course, I used water, and then I used this leave-in conditioner. This is the Miel Pomegranate and Honey leave-in conditioner. Very, very moisturizing product, lots of humectants. So I use this, and then of course I have my water. For my O, which is oil, I just use castor oil personally. I'll talk about oils in a second. And then for my cream, I used my Curl Theory Multi-Style Cream. So yes, if my hair needs protein, I will go in with the Jamaican Black Castor Oil one from Shea Moisture. So these are the main two butters that I use, or cream products that I use. And so that would be an example of the L.O.C method with my hair as the example. The next tip is to use a shower cap or a plastic bag while styling your hair to avoid it from drying out. So I actually got this tip from my little sister who is low porosity, but this is something she does as well. So I like to use a plastic bag while I'm styling my hair. So if you style your hair, usually start from like the bottom, at least I do, or you just start with whatever section and the rest of your hair is, out of the way. Your hair can dry out really quickly if you have high porosity hair like me, and you're just essentially losing all of that moisture that you just put in your hair. So it kind of defeats the purpose of, doing all of these great treatments and then your hair just dries out. So yeah, and you're gonna have to apply more water to your hair, and it's just gonna be a longer process. And your hair can also just dry out and become more brittle. So I like to put a plastic bag over my head while I'm waiting to get to these sections. And it helps to keep my cuticle open. It helps to just keep the moisture around rather than it evaporating away. My next tip is to not use shower caps when you are deep conditioning. So another shower cap tip. So because your hair has no trouble accepting moisture, there's really no need to put a shower cap over your hair when you're deep conditioning. So it's not like, it might be okay, but I recommend not doing it just so that your hair doesn't absorb the product too quickly and you don't have to worry about getting any moisture or protein imbalance. The next tip is to use heavier oils. So given the fact that high porosity hair has these big spaces between each cuticle, it's better to use heavier oils to coat the hair and to make sure that it sits on top of the hair rather than entering the hair. So lighter oils like almond oil and things like that, and jojoba oil, those are ones that are good to, help absorb into the hair. But to seal the hair, I would recommend heavier oils like coconut oil or olive oil or castor oil, like I like to use. And I even like to use Jamaican black castor oil more so on my ends. And yeah, that's what I like to do. So I highly recommend using heavier oils for high porosity hair. All right, you guys, those are the tips that I have for high porosity hair. I kind of lost track. I think I have 10. So hopefully I have 10 for you guys. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Also be sure to turn on all your notifications and follow me on Instagram and TikTok at SoNaturallyGwen. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.